Are we about to go into story time?
We definitely can go to the story time.
How do we even start this? Well, first, let's talk about an age gap in general, right? Remember, we're not experts on this particular, but we will be sharing about personal experiences that I'm sure many of you can relate to. Age gaps, not a huge deal, right? When your brain is done developing, just like we were talking about, right? So if you are 30 and 36, not a huge deal. Maybe even in the same stage of life, right?
Right.
But when you are 17 or 16 or anything under the age of 18, right? I'm a firm believer, honestly, even up to the age 26, until your brain is, mostly developed, a huge age gap will put some sort of power dynamic, right, into
Mm.
that relationship. You're in different stages of your life. You might even be in different financial statuses, right? Different experiences. So there definitely can be a power dynamic. So my own history, if you guys don't know this, you'll see it in the title. I was basically a runaway bride. She's a runner, she's a track star.
She a runner, she a drag star.
But no, seriously, I
No, seriously, I was a runner. I was a track star.
to be serious, I basically called off a wedding with my fiance at the time 3 months before the wedding
So much money right down
occurred.
the tubes. So much money. Just up
R.I.P.
in air. Up in the
R.I.P. to the
air.
money, but you know what? Best, most expensive lesson that I have ever learned.
The
Truly, truly.
best, most expensive lesson. I love that.
Yeah, truly. So the interesting we're going to trigger warning, we're going to be talking about potential but I met my fiance at the time. We had a 10-year history on and off, but I met him when I was 16 years old and he was almost 22, so there's about a 5.5, almost 6 year age gap. And again, not normally a huge deal, right? But when you have somebody that is underage, one.
In your 30s, it's one thing. In your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, beyond. But when you're 16, that feels like a whole different
Right. Again,
experience.
when your brain is developing, right? And again, it comes down to intent. When any relationship, guys, I want you to know this. If any relationship has to start off secret, there is an issue. That is a red flag for toxicity, for something unhealthy, right? Anything done in the dark is going to come out to the light, truly. And there's a ton of cognitive dissonance that will happen, meaning you might create anxiety for yourself, depression, right? Because your behavior and your values aren't aligned.
Why don't you explain what cognitive
Yeah,
dissonance
so
is?
so cognitive dissonance and just a general, a quick explanation is when your values, your belief, and your behavior or your actions are not aligned. They're incongruent, right? So if my value is I believe, secrecy is wrong and I don't like lying, but I am actively lying and hiding this relationship, right? Cognitive dissonance. There's going to create anxiety, depression, other mental health disorders, right? Or issues even. So that's just something to take away, right? Or just at least be aware, at least notice it. And if there are other red flags, right, that might not be the person for you. So back to my experience. So I met this person in high school. If anybody remembers MySpace, my elder emos, oh my God, RIP. Well, maybe in a good way. There was a lot of predators, right?
Right. Everybody knows at least one 16-year-old that was talking to an older guy on MySpace.
Older band guy, right? The music scene. Oh God. Jeffree Star started off on MySpace, right?
He did. I remember that iconic photo of Jeffree Star with the milk coming out of his mouth into the
Oh
Fruit
my gosh,
Loops.
I forgot about that. I forgot about that. Oh my
On
gosh.
anyway.
And so I started to, I guess we'll say date, right? This person when I was 16 years old, and nobody could know though, right? Very few people knew, I'll say that, but nobody in his family, right? Nobody of authority, nobody in the school could know. And again, red flag, right? So this person was fully aware of what they were doing. It was illegal. And eventually, it's a long story, but we break up. He cheated on me. I was devastated. Again, I'm a 16-year-old person. I'm thinking I'm going to marry this person even at 16. He's my first love of my life. And he cheats on me, he abandons me, and coming from somebody that has abandonment issues, right? Grew up without a father, I never met him. At that time, he used that to his advantage, right? He would just stop talking to me for weeks, months, and eventually years, right? and just out of nowhere. And it was convenient to use me as a scapegoat, right? Of she's a bad kid, she has this bad reputation, she breaks guys' hearts, she's a bad girl, she does
What
drugs or
age were you
drinks.
when they were calling you a bad girl?
Right, 16 years old, and now as an adult, I realized it was just unmedicated, undiagnosed ADHD. I mean, I'm still unmedicated, but it was undiagnosed, right? I didn't realize I had it. Nobody realized. So it's a convenient excuse, and you will see this a lot. People will refer to people with ADHD as lazy, unmotivated, um, bad, right? Like they just don't know how to control themselves, which is true. We do have impulse control.
Which is true. We sometimes don't know how to control ourselves, but we work on it.
Right, and it's just one aspect of our personality. Remember, you are not your disorder. You are not just a borderline or a schizophrenic, right? Or a depressive. You are a person with schizophrenia, a person with borderline personality disorder, right? A person with major depressive disorder or any of the other depressive disorders.
I think we're really glossing over the fact that you were 16 years old and
Right,
being
right.
told that you were essentially a slut.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, I was called that many times, right? And you can see how damaging that is even into adulthood, right? Thankfully, I did go to treatment and therapy to, address a lot of this trauma, but it definitely had an impact, right? And he wasn't the only one saying it. But so fast forward to we break up, he starts dating somebody, I start dating somebody else in the military, which we'll talk about
That's a
that
whole other
relationship.
can of
Oh,
worms. Lord
exactly.
Almighty, Jesus.
Pandora's box.
Indeed.
But we love you. We're not gonna say his name, but we still love you. But so we
I can't say the same for my exes, I have to be honest. It's good
and
for
that will
you.
also be
I'm
another
so proud of you for
episode.
feeling that way. I can't relate.
So when we broke up for a couple years, maybe 2 or 3 years, I had went to college in New York first because I had played basketball, and when I got
Don't be putting those
injured
feet out
I
there for
know,
free.
we're gonna be blurring those. And when I got injured, I wound up transferring to a school in South Jersey where I met the love of my life, my soulmate, my rogue therapist, Miss Jen over here. And we were both in the psychology department. And turned 21 and we wound up going out to a bar. And so random, my ex at the time, right, that I dated when I was 16 and he was almost 6 years older than me, was playing at this bar. Playing at the bar, as in a cover band at the bar that we went to. Like, I had no
This is
idea.
exactly what I was doing. I was doing exactly this at the bar.
25-cent beer.
As like
Definitely.
doing the worm in the background.
We were definitely flipping him off, right? Because remember, the last time I had talked to him or seen him, he had ghosted me. He had abandoned me. No matter how many times I texted him and called him, right? And again, remember, that is a warning sign too, guys. When somebody love bombs you, we hear this word a lot, but it means they're giving you a lot of attention. They're giving you a lot of compliments, maybe. Maybe they're giving you a lot of time, energy, gifts, right? So they're doing that at first to give you that big dopamine rush, right? It feels good. Let's not mince words. Like it feels good to get that attention and that financial gain or present or whatever, right? But what happens is we become reliant on that and dependent on that, and they can easily take that away. And then we're left with this low, low self esteem, right? And self worth. And then when they want to come back in, they can just give that back to you, right? And then easily pull that away. And it just becomes this push and pull, and you're dependent on that, right? They have you on this fishing line.
Been
So be
there.
aware of that, guys. Okay. I know it feels good, but please, please watch out. Just know that it's not always healthy, right? So anyway, that was going on during this time. So I was very ruthless. I was 21 at the bar seeing this guy again playing the cover band, and I had this brilliant idea and said, "You know what? One of the last times I talked to him, I had accused him of, there was this girl that said they were together. So he had no idea that I had befriended this girl or she
Of course.
befriended me, whatever. We befriended each other. And he definitely would not have thought that we would have been friends, guys. Okay. So, yes, I took her to the bar the following weekend and I knew that he was playing and we haggled him some more. We cursed him out while he was
We
playing.
hassled him to death.
To death, to death. And is it haggled or hassled? I don't know. Whatever.
Haggled would be
Haggled would
like
be financial. What's the one? Oh, heckled. Heckled. We heckled him to death.
like a
There's
heckle.
the ADHD, guys. Like, we're not even gonna cut that out. I want you to see like the rawness of what goes on here.
The cooperative overlap.
Yeah. Even professors fuck it up, okay? But we heckled him and we would, curse him out. We were flipping him off. And eventually he gets off during his intermission, whatever, his fucking
The cover band did it. Oh my god, they did such a good job of singing Margaritaville. Everybody, let's get around to Yingling.
closing time is next, right?
Closing
We don't
time.
want to get copyrighted
Oh
or
man.
striked,
Well,
whatever.
rewind that.
So he gets off stage, and immediately before we could say anything, he asks us, "Can I buy you guys a drink?" And my initial thought before I could even get it out, I was like, fuck no, right? Like, hell no. But she answers first and goes,
What
"Yeah,
though?
sure, why not?" So I go, "Okay, whatever, we're going to the bar together." So whatever, from one thing to the next comes out, he plays his little wizardry, right? And pins us against each other. And I wind up staying with him and drinking with him all night, right? You're back at the hotel motel in South Jersey, right?
I already had given up, honestly.
She's in bed.
When all of this was happening, I was just trying to figure out how I could get back to order Pizza Hut.
Exactly, in bed.
I
And falling
literally
asleep
just
snoring.
ignored it.
That is so great. That is like our college career, by the way, falling asleep with like French fries or something, or juniors on our
God,
belly,
I'm
right?
falling asleep and
On our
just waking up
chest.
with a chicken
Dessert
finger.
platter on our fucking
I don't know
face.
how I got married when I was just in college spooning chicken fingers.
Hey, Michael's a saint. Anyway, so I wind up staying out all night with him, and that begins the love bombing again, right? Within literally a week, we were talking every single day. We had planned he took me down to, Atlantic City. We were going on a trip or whatever. He had a show down there. And you remember this. This is a warning sign of love bombing. I'll give you guys an example. Not even a week or two into our dating, I had broken my phone. We went out, and of course, I was a little drunk college mess, 21 years old at the time, and I had dropped my phone on the gravel on the pavement, and it just shattered. Right, this is before like screen protectors and stuff. Like, yes, I'm old.
This was before
Not even before, but I
tempered
definitely
glass
was not.
screen protectors.
I was not into that, right? So it broke, and he wound up picking me up the next week, and he had a brand new phone for me. Okay, $900, $800, so whatever. You get it on eBay. Either way, if
Whatever,
somebody,
you got it on eBay.
even if he got it on eBay and it was cheaper, right? If somebody even got me that now, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like, are you kidding me?" Right? That would be a lot for me now, but especially a 21-year-old that could not afford or wouldn't afford it, would have put it on the, payment plan, whatever. Or I would have just sat there with my broken phone for however long. That was a big deal.
As you scroll.
Right, exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
nerds.
Or crack, you're bleeding. And that was a big deal, right? That was a really big deal for me. So that was my first experience after not seeing him, right? And think about it, that's the way to make up for how everything ended. He cheated on me, all those things, right? That's just gone now. And remember, I'm thinking this is my soulmate. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're back together. This was meant to be, right? The love of my life, whatever. So fast forward, we have what I think at the time is a very normal, healthy, positive relationship. We're spending all the time together. We move in after a year, not even, I'm doing his laundry. I'm cleaning his house while cleaning my apartment, right? I'm just doing all the things while, working and doing, whatever. But hindsight bias, looking at it, there were so many red flags that I missed. Okay. And that's totally normal, guys. Hindsight bias, if you don't know, it's
Right.
hindsight is 2020, or I call it Monday morning quarterbacking, when you're, doing the offensive plays and defensive plays after the game has happened. It's easy to say, oh, they should have done this, they should have done this, because we already saw that game happen and what their strategy was going to be. So that's how I
That's
like
genius.
to describe it.
Mm.
But looking at it now with hindsight bias, it definitely was not a healthy relationship. There was a lot of drug use, of course my age played a role into it. There was this lifestyle of partying, and he played in a band.
Well,
And
yeah, you were 21.
right, we were living the fast life. We were gambling a lot, going down to the Atlantic City, whatever, right? And there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of jealousy. This is my second red flag that I missed.
Mm.
I was taught through that relationship that love equals jealousy. Okay, if it is not jealous, it's not love. So that stayed with me even until a few years ago, where I had to really rewire my brain and my neural pathways to, not accept that, not associate that with love, because really love isn't jealous, right? That's possessive, and that's insecurity, and so on. So there was a lot of jealousy. There was a lot of insecurity, unmedicated, undiagnosed mental health issues, untreated mental health issues, because not everybody needs to be medicated. Even for
Yeah.
myself, right? I was going to be a therapist and I wasn't in therapy, right? Like, guys, if you want to be a therapist out there, here's my advice. Go to therapy first, all right? And
I
then
can't even
decide.
tell you how much therapy I've done.
And then decide if you want to be a therapist truly, right? Because sometimes you just need to go to therapy and you don't want to. Most of us go into the field to try to help, our own unresolved issues. So remember that.
And spoiler alert, going into the field doesn't do that.
Exactly. It will only exacerbate it. I'll tell you what my one of my mentors told me in grad school. You will only be able to take your client as far as you've been or as
Mm.
far as you've gone. And I remember thinking, what the heck does that mean? Right? But when I
And now you
got
know.
into practice, I remember I was paralyzed. I had to stop practicing for a while, right? And stop working and work on myself because I hit a head. I didn't know what to do with my clients. I didn't know how to help them truly because I didn't know how to help myself. So remember that. It's a positive thing. Therapists should be in therapy too. Okay.
Absolutely. I know. Such a chaotic
Such a chaotic.
period of
So we
time.
eventually through this time we were sober for a little bit of time where we weren't doing substances necessarily. And
But you would still drink.
sure, I was still drinking at the time. And not that I'm sober now. I'm Cali sober, if you guys know what that is. California. I love cannabis. I'm a big supporter of cannabis, but I don't really drink. I think honestly, I think alcohol is it is the most dangerous drug and substance. If you don't know, it's one of the only substances that will kill you withdrawal wise, besides
Hmm.
something like benzos. So opiates will feel like you're going to die, but you won't actually die unless you're dying from dehydration or some other secondary cause. But alcohol will literally put you into DTs, it's
You can
called,
have a
or a
seizure.
seizure. And same thing with benzos. If you are taking a high amount of benzos like Xanax, Valium, etc., and then you just stop, you could go into a seizure and really, off your, hurt yourself. So
Yeah.
please, seek medical attention for that. But so, there was a period of time we were sober and not using really substances and we got engaged. And I always wanted a long engagement because I thought, listen, we're only engaged once, right? Why rush it? I didn't understand people that, got engaged and married within like 6 months or 8 months or whatever, because
Literally
you're
got
gonna,
engaged and married within a year.
right? Well, a year is okay, right? It's a little bit
Is it?
different. But you guys were dating for a little bit longer too.
No,
But
we
meeting,
weren't.
getting engaged, and then
We were
all
together
within a
for three
year,
years.
like 3 years, right? But I'm talking about meeting, getting engaged, and getting married all within a year, right? Or two, right?
I
People will,
understand.
yeah. So
I
people will,
understand.
whatever. By year one, 8 months, they're getting engaged, they're married
I
by eight,
understand
yeah.
what you're
So,
saying. Yep.
and listen, to each his own. This is just my experience, right? That I'm sharing with you guys. So I always wanted a long engagement, and so we were engaged for 2 years, right? And I was planning the engagement. I was happy, right? There was no, at the time, I didn't know any red flags or signs, and I thought this was the person I'm meant to be with, right? And I was planning the wedding. We got the venue. I got the dress. I got my centerpiece. I mean, guys, I had everything. The last thing that I didn't have were invitations. But I will tell you, there are two times in my life distinctly that I've taken two different directions. And this was one of them where I had a path and I could have taken two distinct ways and it would have changed the outcourse of my life, like the butterfly effect, truly. And I can see it now, right? Even at the moment, I knew that they were very important decisions. So we're moving close to the wedding, right before the wedding. This is another episode too, but I had gotten sick. I struggled with a female condition, had surgery, almost died, had internal bleeding. And that was, leading up to the year of our wedding. So that really took a toll on our relationship. There was a lot of built up resentment on his end that he wasn't being honest about and wasn't doing the work on himself. So, of course, having to take care of somebody else, that is too much for anybody, right? But I was also fighting for my life. I could not no longer take care of him and myself. I had to finally put myself first, right? So that was the start of the breakdown, I will say. And there was no intimacy towards the end. We didn't hold hands, we didn't touch, we didn't I mean, even towards the end, I remember thinking, dude, he's cringing when I'm hugging him, right? He
I
is,
also don't want to blow past, like, it's in sickness and in health.
no, I hear
So
you. I hear
it's
you.
not too much to take care of
Right,
the person that you love. I look
right,
at my husband, and if God forbid he had a chronic condition
right,
that required me to take care of him, I would without even second guessing
right,
it, without keeping score of like, well, I washed your butt this day,
right.
so now you have to wash
First of all,
mine.
and he didn't have to wash my butt. Yeah, right. Like, God, I would never, like, he said,
I
like, that's what I mean. Anyway, so there was a lot of resentment build up that he just wasn't being honest about you know, it was just, we weren't communicating. We weren't we were moving past each other. I realize now, again, hindsight bias. I felt like the way that I was giving love and how he receives love were passing each other, right?
Say that again.
So how I was giving love and how he was receiving love were passing each other. We were speaking two different languages. I was speaking French, he was speaking Italian, right? I'm showing all this love. I'm pouring, I'm pouring, I'm pouring. See how much I love you? But that wasn't filling up his love tank, and vice versa, right? So I'm like, how can you not see how much I love you? And I'm not feeling any love from you. And he's exhausted because he's been pouring out in his love, like, his love, whatever. And yeah, we were just missing each other. So that was a big part of it as well. So towards the end, we're about 6 months to the wedding, and I sit him down at dinner and I say, listen, these are all the issues. I don't feel intimate. I don't feel connected to you. I don't want to get married like this, and I don't think we should. And he straight up looked at me, dude. He straight up looked at me and said, yeah, you're right.
So
And
we're
you know
not
what
gonna do
happened?
anything about it?
You know what happened? We went home that night. We turned from each other in bed, and we went to sleep. No, not one word, not 1 ounce iota of touch, of affection, of intimacy, of communication, nothing. All right. Next big red flag. So we fast forward a couple months, and this is one of those decisions I'm telling you guys about, that butterfly effect, right? My mom was telling me, Kathy, why didn't you order the invitations, right? We're 3 months away. What are you doing? Like, we have to order these. And I'm thinking, yeah. I keep saying, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But there was something in my gut stopping me, right? Intuition, instinct, whatever you want to call it, higher power, it was stopping me. And I could not go through with it. It must have been that cognitive dissonance again, right? And we were 3 months away from the wedding. I had done everything else up until this point.
Like your wedding dress is hanging in the closet.
Oh, yeah. Shoes, centerpieces again, guys. Like, the place was booked.
Bridesmaids.
Bridesmaids dresses. So things are just coming to a head. And I'll be honest, there was an emotional cheating situation on my end, right? That was I call it the catalyst, but yeah, but definitely on my side, I can take accountability and responsibility and say, yeah, right, I wasn't fulfilled. I went about it in the wrong way. And I had just resigned myself that this is the person that I'm going to be divorcing eventually, right? Like, that's truly what I had resigned in my head.
Well, because what's the alternative? It's like I'm going to look at this thing that I've invested so much money, time,
energy. My family has invested. I was closer to his family. People don't realize I knew his family before I even knew him. So I was closer to his family. I called his family before I even knew him. Right.
So it was so many spiritual layers to that, right, which is a whole other episode.
And it's like I totally lost, a big part of my family. You know what I mean? And I understand how hard that can be for people. But the reality is they aren't your family, right? You have your family, even if they're not the greatest or whatever, but they're not your family. And they do win them in the breakup or the divorce, right? For the most part. So unless there's kids and things like that involved, that's a different situation. There was no kids here, but
Michael's family is stuck with me no matter what. We break up, I don't care. I'm still coming to Christmas.
So, right.
Your grandma is my grandma. I don't care.
Of course.
We divorced. She's still my grandma.
Grandma's the best.
That's
too.
My grandma.
Of course.
I don't like you.
Exactly. I mean, at this point,
grandma out of my cold dead fingers.
At this point,
she's mine. I win her in the divorce. You don't deserve her.
There's a couple of jokes I say, a couple of friends I won in the divorce, but that's just me being petty, right?
But that is so hard though. But like friends, even your friend group is split down the middle. Like
right.
Who wins who? You just lose that
right. At that point, I mean, we were living together 6-7 years, so your lives are intertwined. We lived like we were married. We were about to go to the courthouse literally a week after the breakup. We had scheduled to plan to go to the courthouse so I could get health insurance. So we were going to get married before everybody else saw it so that I could be insured, right? Because I mean, we lived like we were married. We shared everything we had. So anyway, it gets closer. This emotional cheating happens, and it just is the breakup, right? It's for the catalyst of the breakup. And I remember him sitting me down and said, and the only positive, healthy, cathartic aspect of this breakup is that we had one moment where we were laying on the bed together and just sobbing. He was holding me and just crying, right? I mean, it's 10 years of just emotions and experiences, and right? I mean, he was my best friend, my best friend. And we were just crying. He's like, what do we do? Do we just stay together? And I looked at him and I was like,
you're going to make me cry.
I was like, I cannot go back to how it was. I cannot go back to that. Right. As much as I love you. And I loved him as a person. I cared about this person, right? But I just could not. I was so unfulfilled and I knew it. And he asked me, like, did you cheat? And I said, no, but I cannot sit here and look you in the eyes and say that I wouldn't cheat in the future because of how this is going. And I knew that that was my sign, right? As much as I heard this was my opportunity, there was a lot of self-sabotage involved, but it was my
But
unconscious.
also,
Freud would say my unconscious was bleeding and coming out and telling me and screaming.
and so much insight, it's not just self-sabotage, it's you acknowledging, yeah, this isn't working. And
Yeah.
maybe that's going to sabotage what I have going on right now, but it's the
Right.
truth.
The comfortability too. So many people stay for the comfortability, and I don't judge anybody who stays for the comfortability. I get it, right? But absolutely, it was definitely my unconscious, my cognitive dissonance, if you would, coming to a head.
Right.
100%.
Right.
So we broke up, right? And afterwards, I had this trip to India planned. We went to India for a service trip, and I knew when this was happening, I had this, pull towards going to India always, right? I took that Art of India class in undergrad that Jen recommended for me, and I just fell in love with India, Indian culture. I did a project on Holi and went to a temple for a multicultural class in grad school. And I just had this pull towards India, and they opened up this class to people alumni, right? And at the time, I couldn't take it when I was in school because I was taking all my electives for my specialties and my interests. And they opened it up, and it was happened to be a few months after, the breakup. And it was truly life changing. I mean, I grew up with a single mother. When I came into a little bit of money while I was dating this person, right? You have two incomes, or this older adult that has an actual income. I became materialistic, and him and his family were materialistic. So remember, you hang with shit, you smell like shit. You don't realize you smell like shit, but everyone else does. So remember that, okay? It will rub off on you even if you don't realize it. So I became very materialistic, right? All about money and gaining new things, but it was always unfulfilling. I would get the new Gucci, the new Versace, the new
Get
whatever,
me
right?
the new Gucci.
Literally, because it was not even fulfilling me. So now I had to get it for other people. And eventually,
I wear those shoes every
I
day.
still wear them too, like full disclosure, but but I wouldn't get anything now, right? Because it just doesn't, I think it's a waste of time and energy and money and, whatever. But I went to India, and again, we do not know poverty like there is in other, countries, I'll say, okay? Underdeveloped countries. Yes, our unhoused people here. I mean, it's terrible. I don't think people should be unhoused on the street at all, right? No, have no place to live.
Mhm.
But we don't know poverty like there is other places until you see a mother that is naked with a child, a baby hanging off her breast, begging for a protein bar, right? It's, going to the bathroom on the street. I mean, unless you go to New York City, but that's different. Changed my life for the better, for sure. Eat, pray, love. My own eat, pray, love. But
But really,
yeah,
you went from such excess to like really seeing
yeah,
the real world
right.
beyond this American bubble.
Yeah. And listen, there's still right now, I wish I could go for, 3 months or something, 6 months. Maybe one day I'll live there and just, for a short period of time and continue to volunteer. But that's one thing I can, recommend to you guys is obviously we're going to talk about the difference between self-centeredness and narcissism next episode, but putting yourself first is so important. All right. It is not a negative thing, right? Unless you're intentionally hurting or harming somebody else to do what you want to do. But putting yourself first is necessary. You have to do that. So remember that, right? That's the one takeaway we want you guys to know.
When the plane is going down, what do they tell you about the oxygen mask?
Put it on yourself first, even if there is a kid next to you.
Screw the kid.
Screw the
Put
kid.
your own
Because
oxygen
if
mask
you
on.
are passed out, you can't help anyone next to you,
Screw the
right?
kid.
Think about it.
Prioritize yourself. Screw the kid.
So this makes me think of all the red flags, hindsight bias again, going back to this relationship. Remember, we met when there was a power dynamic. We met when I was underage and he was above age. And then we started dating later. And I think there was a part of me, truly, Jen, I'll be honest with you guys. I think there was a part of me that wanted to be with him later to make that relationship valid and right. Like there was even cognitive dissonance there that if I don't marry this person, then it was just this traumatic, hurtful, statutory relationship.
And if the universe didn't want me to go through this,
Right.
it had to be for a reason. It had to be for a lesson.
Right.
Like,
And it
what's
would
the
make it
key?
okay. It would make that age gap okay
Yeah.
because we wound up getting married and we're okay. And we see this a lot, right? It reminds me of a lot of people that meet when they're young, right? And there's that age gap. They get married, they think it's okay, and they wind up breaking up later, right? There's still trauma even if you marry this person. So, very interesting. Yeah, there was a lot of red flags that I saw. There was one time, this was one of the biggest red flags that in the moment, I think I call it the glass shattering moment. If you guys have ever seen How I Met Your Mother, there's an episode where basically they call it the glass shattering moment where nothing is the same. You cannot look at it the other way, right? It's like ignorance has been broken and that's it. You can't look at you can't go back. And my sister found a picture of me when I was 16.
We have to
We'll
insert it.
insert it. And she found this picture of me and she sent it and we were all laughing, right? My mom and I were laughing and he was defensive. No, we were not together at this time. Look how young I had braces. No, we weren't together. He was defensive. And I've only seen him this way a couple times and it would make sense, right? This was like one of 3 times that I remember that he was this defensive. And I had to say to him, "No, look at the picture. I'm wearing your necklace in this picture, right?" Because and that means we were together a little while. I might have even been 15, right? Going on 16 or whatever, or just turned
Right,
16.
you're 16 and you already have a gift that he is
Yep,
giving
his
you.
own necklace, right? And his face dropped and he was like, "Oh," right? And it was just all of us had this silent moment of, "Wow, yeah, I was really young. I looked really young." So,
What did
yep.
your mom say?
Nothing, she was just silent, you know? I think that
I'd be so
it's
curious to hear what she thought about
yeah.
that
And I think
experience.
for a mother, right, wouldn't you almost be in denial? You wouldn't wanna think that your daughter is about to get married to this person that was, in an abusive power situation or statutory situation or whatever you wanna call it,
Right,
right?
right,